Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Programming in Python. Today we're going to be going over variables and data types. So basically a variable in Python or any programming language is basically a box with a name that holds data that can be accessed later. Now, the data that you put inside variables are very different, and they have their own uses. So the first type is a string. So I wrote this program right here, really simple. And basically, this right here, this green, that's the string. And it's being saved into a variable using the equal sign right here into a variable called myString. Now remember, when you make a variable, you cannot have any spaces, so you have to use underscores. And then I'm going to print this string using this variable. So I put myString into print, and when I run it by pressing F5, this is a string. It can hold numbers like 1, 3.4, 3.14, and negative zero point 0.9. Now, strings can hold numbers and letters and literally everything that you have in your keyboard, pretty much. The next data type is called integers. You might remember from math class that all natural numbers, 1, 2, 3, and so on, and their opposites, negative 1, 2, and 3, and so on, are called integers. Now, here I have an example of an integer. This is 12,345. And when I print it, it'll print out 12,345. Now there's another type of integer called a floating point integer, or a float for short, and basically the only difference is the decimal point. So this right here is not an integer, it's a floating point integer, or float. Now, an example of a bad integer, like an integer that Python won't even let you use, includes letters or other characters that aren't numbers, such as this right here or this right here. Now, Python won't even let me run this script. It gives me an error because it knows that you can't have numbers like this and a character like that. Now, it will run, however, if I put that inside single quotes or double quotes. Now when I run it, it actually outputs. However, this right here, this is a string now. It's no longer an integer, it's no longer a float. Alright, so now we have booleans. Booleans are either true, false, or sometimes none, which might be known as null in other languages, but I mean, that's not really relevant to this course. So, a boolean in Python always has a capital first letter, and it'll light up in orange if you're using idle. So my boolean equals true. So true is being saved in the name my boolean. Now, this could also be false, which also lights up in orange, or none, which is orange. But I'm going to keep this true for now. Now, what this program is going to do is it's going to save true in my boolean, and it's going to print out true right here. And now underneath it, it's going to evaluate the statement right here. It's going to check whether true is equal to false, right? Using the double equals operator, which is used to check, versus the single, which is used to assign a value to something. So this checks if true is equal to false, and which is not true, so it'll print false. So this should print true, and then this should print false. So if we run it, there we go. True, my boolean is true, and then true is equal to false is false. So finally, we have lists. Now lists are used to store multiple types of data, which can also include other lists. So here I have a list variable called myList, and this is a blank list. You always use brackets, the square ones, when you make a list. So when it prints my list, it'll print empty brackets. Now down here, my list now equals the integer 1, the string hello, the boolean false, and the float 3.543. Now, when it prints my list, it'll print out all of these to the screen. So when I press F5, there we go. We get the empty list at the beginning, and we get the list with the different types of data at the end. One last thing about variables, make sure you don't name your variables anything that Python already has a built-in function for. So don't name your variables anything like list or string str or integer as int, because those types of names already belong to something built into Python. So like the integer, the int, it converts strings to integers. That's what that int does. Now, you see, if you name your variable int, it might get overwritten, or the method might overwrite your variable. So it's just a good practice to avoid naming things like that. Thanks again for watching, and stay tuned for episode 3.